Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our ceremony. I just want to start by saying good morning to our graduating class of 2022, and also to all of our special guests that are here today. Welcome to Lindsay Thurber. They call Lindsay Thurber High School's annual Hall of Fame ceremony. As we begin, I would just like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory to the north of the Red Deer River and Treaty 7 territory to the south of the Red Deer River. We acknowledge and give thanks to all of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. My name is Chris Good, and I'm the principal here at École Lindsay Thurber Comprehensive High School. We just wanted to start by just talking a little bit about the history of the school. So Lindsay Thurber is a school with a long and storied tradition. Our school has links to Red Deer as far back as 1908, when the first Red Deer High School was opened. The school was named Red Deer Composite High School in 1947 and was renamed Lindsay Thurber High School in 1954. In 1990, our first group of French immersion students arrived at the school, and it then became known as École Lindsay Thurber High School. And we're really pleased because our inductee today is the first French immersion graduate to be added to our Hall of Fame. Over the years, our graduates have distinguished themselves in many areas, including public service, medicine, education, fine arts, sports, and business. In recognition of this culture of excellence, the Lindsay Thurber Hall of Fame was established in the 1991-92 school year to recognize the outstanding achievements of individuals who have graduated from Lindsay Thurber Comprehensive High School and the previous high schools that came before. Since that time, we have held a Hall of Fame ceremony every year, with the exception of 2020, when no ceremony was held due to the pandemic. Today, I am glad that we are able to continue our Hall of Fame tradition as we celebrate Dr. Jessica Scott from the grad class of 1998 at our Hall of Fame ceremony today. Before recognizing Dr. Scott, I'd just like to welcome some of our special guests. First of all, from Red Deer Public Schools, we have our Associate Superintendent of Student Services, Mrs. Del Reston. At our annual Hall of Fame, we often invite past inductees. This year we weren't able to do that, but we do have someone here. I'd like to welcome Nancy Johnstone, who's with us, and she is the daughter of the late Alvin Johnstone, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1998. And Nancy's also a member of our Hall of Fame committee, but to me today she's also representing all past inductees and their families. So Nancy, welcome. I'd just like to welcome our Hall of Fame committee members. First of all, Ms. Elaine Becker and Jack LaRouche, who are our outgoing student committee members. I'd also like to, so every year we have their graduating, so they'll be moving on from our Hall of Fame committee, but we're welcoming 2 grade 10s who will be incoming onto our Hall of Fame committee for the next 2 years. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Maya Robinson, Ms. Maya here, she's in the back, and Mr. Austin Steffen. So those 2 will be our new committee members. The rest of our Hall of Fame committee, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Dana McCann, our office manager. There. Mrs. Barb Young, Mr. Rob Porca, and Mr. Paul Gowans. So Mr. Gowans is a former principal at Lindsay Thurber, and he was the one that had the vision to create the Hall of Fame as a way of honoring the storied tradition of our school. We also have family and friends, as well as some former teachers of our 2021 inductee, Dr. Jessica Scott, joining us this morning. So I'd like a special welcome to her husband, Christian, and sons Liam and Ethan, who traveled all the way from New York to be with us here today. So thanks for being with us. So we'd like to start our ceremony with a video montage of past and current inductees that was arranged by one of our teachers, Mr. Jill Terrio.
Jessica graduated from the French immersion program at LTCHS in 1998. After receiving a Bachelor of Science degree at the University of Alberta in 2003, she completed her Masters of Science in 2005 and PhD in 2009 at the University of British Columbia, studying the effects of prolonged exercise on heart function in athletes and heart transplant recipients. Sports were an important part of Jessica's educational experience. In high school, she was a member of the LTCHS cross-country and track teams and a longtime member of the Catalina Swim Club. In university, she was a member of the rowing and cross-country teams and triathlon club. Jessica was a coach with the Marlin Swim Club and was co-race director of the inaugural Woodies Triathlon. She is still an active athlete, competing often in trail running and triathlons.
During graduate school, Jessica attended the International Space University Summer Course in Strasbourg, France, where she became interested in the physiological side effects of spaceflight. After completing a postdoctoral fellowship at NASA's Johnstone Space Center in Houston, Texas, she then spent 5 years as a senior specialist in the exercise physiology and countermeasures laboratory at NASA, where she studied how exercise training could help astronauts prevent the damaging side effects of spaceflight. Jessica joined the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City in 2017 to research how the tools and exercise interventions used to keep astronauts healthy could be applied to patients with cancer. Jessica's research has been funded by NASA, the National Space Biomedical Institute, and the National Cancer Institute. She is the recipient of the Natural Sciences and Engineering Council of Canada Award, Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research Award, NASA's Human Research Program Peer Award, NASA's Innovation Achievement Award for the design and implementation of a novel ultrasound technique to measure muscle mass in microgravity, and NASA's Group Achievement Award as a member of the one-year mission operations team.
We would now like to call Jessica to the stage. Dr. Jessica Scott, it is with great pleasure that we give to you this plaque and formally welcome you to the Lindsay Thurber Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much. I am tremendously honored to be here today. I'm looking at all of the pictures and all the other inductees. It's a true honor, and I really appreciate the nomination and the committee for inducting me into the LTCHS Hall of Fame. When Chris emailed me almost a year and a half ago now about the nomination, I was surprised to realize that it's been almost 10 years since I had been back in Red Deer. And as I was reflecting on how quickly 10 years had gone by, I was reminded of a picture that was in my grandma's house, that is now in my mom's house, that says, there are two gifts we give our children, one is roots and the other is wings. So today I am very grateful to have the opportunity to thank my roots, share a little bit about what I've done over the past 20 or so years, and then share a few words of wisdom for the class of 2022. So, actually, sorry, I think we need to go back a few slides. First, I need to thank my family. First and foremost, my mom, Joan, who as a single parent went back and got her PhD when I was 10 years old and was a professor at Red Deer College, all the while shuttling me back and forth to swim practices. So thank you for all your hard work and dedication. To my family, Jim, Maureen, Irma, Shannon and Stephen, and my kids and husband, thank you for always supporting me on all of my crazy adventures. I would next like to thank my coaches. As we've heard, exercise has been a very important component of my life, and it really started with Red Deer Catalina Swim Club and my coach, Rod Barrett. He started coaching me when I was 11. He really fostered the love of breaststroke, and he took me to my first national swim meet when I was 12. And as I was looking for pictures to include in this presentation, I discovered that we actually still have a club record that is totally ancient now. It's from 1993. And I say we because it's really a testament to what a great coach he was. He was always encouraging us to go more and give our best efforts. So we heard, I was a member of LTCHS cross-country running teams and track teams, and my coach, Jeff Parker and BJ Billings, were so instrumental. They actually would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and train my friend Emily Kubanek and I, because we couldn't go to practice after school. I had swimming and Emily had fencing. BJ also gave me one of my first jobs. He opened the Runner's Den, and I worked there in the summers. So he was very instrumental in fostering my love of exercise. This is a broader category of thank you. It's the community as a whole. You heard I coached Marlins swimming for several years, where I got to meet very wonderful parents as well as great young swimmers. And as I was looking at the LTCH website, I realized that one of the kids that I used to coach, Haley Goring, is actually teaching here now, which is great. And one of the parents who was so helpful is Shar Andrew, who is also here today. It's so great to see Shar. I coached her daughter Amy when I was swimming. And when I was coaching swimming one day, I ran into my 7th grade gym teacher, Hilda Duckett. And she was training for triathlons. And she knew of my background swimming, and she really encouraged me to try out triathlons. She even lent me one of her road bikes so I could try my very first race. And I still remember how painful it was, and I found these old results. I didn't do very well that day, but I was so inspired by how well Hilda did. She ended up being 4th at the national championships, that I was really inspired to keep going with triathlons. And I actually loved triathlons so much that when I was 18, I decided that Red Deer really needs its own triathlon race. So I co-organized the inaugural Woody's RV World Triathlon, as it was known at that time. And I think the only reason it was a success was because we recruited parents like Shar from the Marlins Swim Club, who jumped in and helped out with anything and everything that needed to get the event off the ground. And I was so happy to see that the event continues to this day. And it looks like this year they had the event just a few weeks ago. So it's so great that young kids and other people in the community can experience triathlons like I had. And last people I would like to thank are all of the teachers. I remember every single teacher I had. We ran into my biology 30 teacher, Mr. King, this morning. But there are 2 teachers in particular I would like to thank. The first teacher is Malcolm Begwa, who taught us in Central Middle School, as well as several classes at LTCHS. But there's one class in particular that had an impact on me, and it's our Physics 20 class. And I think because I worked at NASA, people assume that I am very good at math and physics, and that is not true at all. My 5-year-old and 8-year-old can add, multiply, subtract anything faster than I can. So I am terrible at physics, and initially I wasn't putting in a lot of effort into physics. And I remember Mr. Watt handed me back one of my physics tests that I didn't do very well at, and he said 5 words to me. He said, "Jessica, you can do better." And he was right. My better wasn't a 90%, it wasn't 80%, but it was certainly better than the 50% that I got on that first test. The second very instrumental teacher I had is here today. It's Rob Porca, Mr. Porca, who taught our French immersion class social studies from grade 9 all the way up until grade 12. And Mr. Porca was so instrumental at instilling a love of the world beyond Red Deer, beyond Canada, and looking at how the past can influence the future. So thank you for inspiring our class to do more. Mr. Porca was also a very dedicated educator. He was so dedicated, we talked about Femi, but I don't know if you remember when we were studying McCarthyism, we put Mr. Porca on trial, we convicted him, and we put him in jail for the entire social studies class. We also reenacted the battle at Vimy Ridge. We loved learning about World War I and World War II. So my friends and I, in the middle of winter, we came here on the weekend. We dug out trenches to simulate the Battle of Vimy. We filled balloons with flowers, and then when it was -20 outside, we had the entire class go outside for our period and reenact the Battle of Vimy with our flower balloons as grenades. So Mr. Porco was always game for anything, and he let us do whatever we needed. So to all of these people, I say a sincere thank you and a huge gratitude for laying that strong foundation for me to go on beyond the world of Red Deer. So when you look at my biography, and I think you read a lot of others' biographies, the path to success looks like a very straight line. But the path to success is not straight. It involves a lot of ups, downs, twists, and turns. So today I'll share a little bit about all of those twists and turns that I took. When I graduated in 1998, we had a French immersion yearbook, and we asked the question, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And my response was, I will be a money-making physiotherapist and Ironman triathlete. I was very interested in physiotherapy because it was a sports field. I could help people become more active. So I spent my first year at Red Deer College, and I knew I wanted to go back to the University of British Columbia, where I spent a few years when my mom was doing her PhD. So I transferred into a Bachelor of Arts program. I then transferred into a Bachelor of Kinesiology program, all the while applying to physiotherapy school, all the while being rejected by physiotherapy school. So I learned that it was easier to get into physio school at the University of Alberta. So I then transferred to the University of Alberta for 2 years, where I was in a Bachelor of Science program. And it wasn't until the 5th year where I took a research course, where there was a graduate student who was putting catheters in people's hearts and having them exercise to maximal effort and looking at how their hearts worked. And I immediately fell in love and knew that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So to recap my undergraduate career, it was very twisty and turny. I went to 3 different undergraduate schools. I was rejected a lot by physiotherapy schools. And it wasn't until the 5th year that I was finally accepted into physiotherapy school, but at that point I knew that wasn't for me. So I decided to go to grad school, and I had enough of Edmonton winters. There was no more of that. So I decided to go to the University of British Columbia to start my master's degree, where I was looking at the effects of exercise on cardiovascular function. And again, triathlons were such an important component. And I wanted to look at the differences between males and females. And it turns out that males' hearts get more tired than females' hearts after doing a half Ironman triathlon. So that was very interesting. I was also interested in this phenomenon called orthostatic intolerance. So when you stand up, you get a little bit dizzy or you feel a little bit lightheaded sometimes. That is more common in athletes. So we built this contraption. It's called a lower body negative pressure box, which basically sucks the blood to your lower legs and simulates standing up. And as I was researching orthostatic intolerance, it turns out that this is also very common in astronauts. So I read a lot about astronauts. And I was walking down the hallway one day at UBC, and I saw an ad for this program called the International Space University, where you go spend the summer anywhere around the world and learn everything there is to know about space. So the interesting thing about this program is that you had to be bilingual. So I actually reached out to Mr. Porca, and he wrote me a reference letter saying that I was indeed bilingual, and that's why French immersion has also been a very important component as I progressed through the rest of my career. So I applied and I got in. Unfortunately, that year, it happened to be in Vancouver. So I didn't get to travel very far, but that really encouraged me to apply again. And then I got to spend the summer in Strasbourg, France, where we learned everything about space. So we got to learn about rockets, solar flares, all of these engineering components that I wasn't very familiar with, but we also got to learn from astronauts and a couple of other very interesting physiological folks. So after I finished that program, I started my PhD, again looking at cardiovascular function. I was still at the University of British Columbia, but for my studies, I traveled around a lot again. So one of the studies, we went to Squaw Valley, California, to study these crazy people who do 100-mile running races, like Irma, and we looked at what happens to their hearts before and after they did running for anywhere from 18 to 30 hours. We also traveled back to Edmonton because Edmonton had some very special tools that were available at UBC. So we looked at what happens when people with heart transplant exercise. And then again, orthostatic intolerance. So this is a lower body negative pressure device that can go into a magnetic resonance imaging machine. And we can look at the heart while it's beating. So that was the completion of my PhD. And typically after you finish a PhD, you go on to do a postdoctoral fellowship. And I actually had two options on where to go with my postdoc. One option was in North Carolina to go and study what happens to the heart when people are undergoing cancer treatment. And the other was to go to NASA. And I'm sure it seems like a fairly straightforward choice which one to go, but I had a lot of back and forth about whether I should continue on straightforward to academia. But in the end, as you know, I decided to go to NASA. And what was so interesting about NASA is that they have been using exercise to help protect astronauts since the 1960s. So they had a very robust program of keeping astronauts healthy. And unfortunately, I don't think these videos will work, but this first picture on the left is one of the astronauts that has a treadmill. So they're tethered to the treadmill and they can do all of their exercise while on what's called a vibration isolation system. And they started that because they realized early on, back in 2005, that if astronauts were running at a certain cadence, they could actually resonate the entire space station, and they were worried about the space station deorbiting. So they made a vibration isolation system. And on the right, they also have resistance exercise. So this device can do any exercise that you would on Earth, they can do in space. So squats, bicep curls, tricep extensions, everything. And the assumption was that all of this exercise in space would help offset the very detrimental side effects that happens. Astronauts lose a lot of muscle, their hearts get smaller, so exercise is very important. But one of the things that NASA didn't know about was what happens to muscle when you go into space. And because I had a lot of experience using ultrasound to look at the heart, they then asked me to look at, can ultrasound be used to look at muscle in space? So we developed this template that goes on your leg, and we had it fly on the International Space Station, where my colleagues and I, we would sit at mission control in Houston, and then we would communicate with the astronauts on the space station and help them acquire their images of muscle mass in space. So that was one of the exciting projects that I got to work on. The other very interesting project that I got to work on was a spaceflight analog. So it's very difficult to do studies in astronauts. So NASA uses a head-down tilt bed rest study, and that simulates all of the fluid shifts that happen in space. And we wanted participants to come for 10 weeks, so lie in bed for 10 weeks. And we were initially concerned that this would be very difficult to recruit people to lie in bed for 10 weeks straight, everything. Eating, sleeping, toileting, everything was done in this head-down tilt position. But the media actually got a hold of the fact that NASA was paying people to be in this bed rest study, and we ended up having over 10,000 applicants for just 30 spots. So the media was in fact helpful. And what's very unique about this study is that, as I mentioned, everything was in the head-down tilt position. So the diet was so tightly controlled that if a participant didn't finish an item for lunch, it was weighed, and then an item of isocaloric content was then added to dinner. So it was very, very tightly controlled. And we were trying to simulate exactly what happens to astronauts in space. And one of the challenges is, how do we simulate the exercise that astronauts do without having our participants sit up? So we had to design these very interesting devices this is one of my colleagues who's doing a squat, basically like an accordion, again, not sitting up. And then, again, I'm sorry this video is not playing because it's pretty cool, but essentially they designed a treadmill on a wall. So the video was starting opposite way and then it flips upwards, but the participants would essentially run on the wall, again, so they don't have to sit up and simulate what's going on in space. And the other fun aspect that I got to try was, because we were testing and trying to make sure it's exactly what astronauts were experiencing, we also got to test out the treadmill in a microgravity environment. So this looks like fun, but it's also called the Comet because the profile looks like below, where you do 40 parabolas in a row. So you get a very high gravitational load, and then as you're rounding the top, just like a roller coaster, you start to experience about 20 seconds of microgravity. And then immediately you're up again in hypergravity. So about 20 seconds of microgravity, and we're collecting all of this different data to make sure that we're simulating what happens in microgravity. So while I was at NASA, it was very exciting and very interesting, but I was fortunate that the person, my mentor, who I was initially going to do a postdoc with, he said, it's okay, go to NASA, but we're still going to work together. And while I was at NASA, Dr. Lee Jones, he also encouraged me to write a lot of review papers. So we studied what happens to patients who are undergoing cancer therapy and how that impacts the heart. And it wasn't until about 2017 that we had a bit of a revelation, where we realized that astronauts and cancer patients are actually very similar. So they're not that different. Not all astronauts are extraordinarily healthy individuals. A lot of them have high blood pressure, high lipids. They're typically a little bit older. In microgravity, there's a whole bunch of fluid shifts that happen, and they become very deconditioned, which is very similar to patients with cancer. So astronauts and cancer patients have multiple hits, we call them, to every single system in the human body. And what's different in the United States is that, unlike astronauts or all of these other chronic diseases, exercise is not standard of care for patients with cancer. And that's what really motivated me to move from NASA to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, was to take what we learned at NASA and help the millions of patients who have cancer right now and are suffering some of those side effects. So right now what we are doing is we're applying what we call a cancer countermeasures program using NASA's paradigm. And one of the aspects that we implemented is, we know we implemented exercise in astronauts who are 100 miles above Earth. Why can't we do something similar for patients with cancer? So even before COVID, we started delivering treadmills to patients' homes and supervising them through Zoom remotely. So that's one of our clinical trials that we're ongoing right now, is applying a lot of those tools that NASA uses. So in my last few minutes, I'll share a few lessons for the class of 2022 as you embark on your phases of your career. The first lesson I learned is that, as I mentioned, there are a lot of ups, downs, and twists and turns. So pursue your passion, but be open to other opportunities that may come along your way. The second is that success in the things you love will take a lot of work, but it will feel easy. It's enjoyable to do the things that you love. Biology was very easy for me. I loved it. Physics was not. So that's the part that will take a lot of effort. Success in the things you don't love will take a lot of effort, and it will be a grind. The other aspects I learned from my coaches and my teachers was, ask yourself, can I do better, and is this my best effort? It's all about giving your best efforts in all aspects of your life. And my final lesson is, don't be like me. Don't take 20 years to thank your people. So thank you again to all of my people. Thank you.
Well, I would just like to thank Dr. Scott for making the trip to be here today, and thanks for that great message for our 2022 graduating class. And each year we ask our Hall of Fame inductees to travel to Red Deer for our ceremony, and especially this year traveling from out of country, we know is certainly more challenging, so we want to thank you and your family for coming here. And we do have a small gift for Christian, Liam, and Ethan. So if they want to come up here and get their gift. You want to open them for us here so you can see what's in there? Now, we know you're not from Red Deer, but we do consider you honorary Raiders now, so we want you to There you go. It'll look good when you go back home. Mom, you're going proud. That's right. Thanks, guys. So each year in May, the Hall of Fame Organizing Committee gets together to evaluate the nominations that are sent to us. This is not an easy task, as there's hundreds of candidates that have accomplished extraordinary things after graduating from Lindsay Berber. So this past year in particular has been challenging. I know that we weren't able to meet in person. We weren't able to have a ceremony last year, but I do want to thank all of the members of our committee for sticking with us, and I look forward to meeting this May and talking about our inductee for next year. Just a few other thanks. I'd just like to thank Jill Terrio, who put together the video montage at the start, and also he set up the live stream. So I know there's a small group of us in the library today, but I know that all of our grade 12s are out in classes watching the live stream, and I know that there's people from outside the school watching as well. So thanks, Mr. D. I also want to thank our student committee members, Elena and Jack, for coming on the tour this morning and helping us with that, and then also for doing the introduction. And I just also want to say a big thank you to our office manager, Dana McCann, for all of her work making sure today went off without a hitch. So thank you, Dana. And finally, to our graduating class of 2022, I hope that you all took some inspiration from what Dr. Scott shared with us this morning. And I think for this class in particular, you've already shown just tremendous resilience over the last 18 months. You've had a school year, a high school experience like no one else. I know that many of you have been in school, you've been online, you've gone through our class over the last year has gone through more isolation periods than any other students ever and hopefully ever will too. But through it all, just as your principal, I just want to say I've been so proud to watch the way all of you have conducted yourselves. You've stayed, although frustrated at times, positive for the most part. And I also really admire the way our this year's grade 12s have really stuck together and supported each other. When people are feeling down, when someone was on their 4th or 5th isolation last year, we always saw your friends around you, helping you through that, helping you, get back to school, helping you with your homework, and also obviously your teachers did a great job of that too. So as we move through your final year of high school, I look forward to being able to see you celebrate together all year. So I want to challenge you also to embrace the challenge of your final year and make sure you continue to show that resilience that we've seen over the last 2 years. And also, though, make sure to have some fun and make some memories. And when June rolls around and you're heading out into the world, I really hope you take some inspiration from Dr. Scott and the rest of our school alumni in the Hall of Fame. Strive to do good things, and as Dr. Scott said, the path to success is not linear. There's lots of twists and turns, and always do your best. And I hope as you go out into the world in June, you create your own legacy in the world. And I personally really look forward to the day when a member of the 2022 Lindsay Berber graduating class is inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I hope they invite me back when that happens. So I would like like to ask just all of our grade 12 teachers in their class, if you could just switch over from this link to the link that Mrs. Brand sent you for the grad assembly, which will be happening in starting in about 5 minutes. And all of our invited guests here in the library will just make their way over to the front of the living commons where lunch will be served. So, thank you everyone, and to all of you that have tuned in online, thanks for being